Hey, what's up, guys? It's Apollo Uchiha here, back with a new story. The name of this story is What If Naruto Had Died? And yeah, guys, it's a story by Skune08. And yeah, I kind of created its ending with my own twist. So yeah, if you haven't, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And I have already uploaded the next part of What If Naruto was separated from his family. If you haven't checked that out, please check that out as well. And without further ado, let's continue our story. Our story begins as we see in our opening field. Naruto jumps up excited, looking around and wondered where he was when he had paused out from trying for so long to use Kyokusei no Jutsu. Get up, a stern voice said. Even though he was already standing, Naruto turned to look at Jiraiya. The nickname Arasani, he blinked in confusion as the serious face Jiraiya was making didn't seem to fit the man's usually jovial and perverted face. What? Naruto muttered, still trying to take in his surroundings. Jiraiya gave him a choice and chance to. The training ends today. If you do not want to die, figure it out yourself, Jiraiya said to him, who grunted in confusion as Jiraiya then reached up and pushed Naruto, of course. This push shoved the man's strength as even with a mere flick of his arms, Naruto was sent flying through the underbush and out over a cavern of immense proportions. Panic took Naruto almost immediately as he screamed out in fear while plummeting towards the bottom of the cork. Of course, the first thing he noticed was the spikes on the side of the cork and attempted to use his newfound chakra control to latch onto the spikes. Unfortunately, his control either wasn't good enough or he was moving too fast downwards because he barely got a grip on the surface before sliding right past it. With his only way of stopping himself obviously not working, he finally comprehended the thought he had unconsciously been thinking since he was cast into the cork. I'm going to die, he thought to himself unexpectedly. If anyone were to watch Naruto's face, they wouldn't see that panic-stricken look on his face any longer. They wouldn't see his mouth open in an external scream of fear. They wouldn't see how his bright blue eyes closed in an almost dramatic fashion. And they wouldn't see the small smile that graced his face as he continued his speedy plummet down to the cork. Of course, Naruto wasn't prepared when he suddenly started to sputter as he tasted water in his mouth. He quickly, instinctively jumped up and hacked out the small bit of water he had inadvertently swallowed. Naruto yet again turned his head in many directions, attempting to take in his surroundings. He noticed himself in a corridor with water, then reached to his knees. He noticed that the corridor seemed as if it was just a plain corridor of white, which stretched into the blackness at the end of the high sight range. There were many different entrances to other corridors from the one Naruto was standing in, but the loud rumbling noise that shook part of the water had Naruto instantly switching his head to the place where he felt it coming from. That's the chakra I was looking for, he thought to himself. Naruto started forth quickly, noticing that there was pipes along the walls as he walked, but his walk was not long as he quickly entered a much bigger area, one which had golden bars on the opposite sides of himself. The inky blackness behind those gates, Naruto was certain, held the being whose chakra he had been trying to call upon. Just as he reached his conclusion, the inky blackness showcased a large row of weaponless teeth. Come closer, child, the voice said in boom. Naruto felt his body shaking as he moved closer to the bars, his eyes locked on the set of menacing red eyes with black slits as pupil. He could do nothing but obey as he shuffled his feet forward, the water lapping and splashing as he disturbed its usual slumber. All too soon, Naruto was standing a few feet from the gates when every claw shot out from the inky blackness. What happened next shocked even the great beast of malice and evil. Instead of dodging the attack, the blonde child, whom was the container, slowly let a smile come across his face yet again as he watched with what could only be described as anticipation as the every point of the claw made contact with his small body and tore a hole the size of a fist in Naruto's stomach, a fatal wound for even a fully grown man, much less a child. The Kyuubi blinked as it withdrew its claw, looking at them almost in disbelief as it watched Naruto's life blood pour from his wounds. It suddenly let out a booming laugh. The malice of even its laugh would make anyone's skin crawl as its eyes shone with glee. Finally, freedom! You are worthless sack of flesh. Such a stupid thing to be so easily deceived. He taunted Naruto, looking down at his swiftly fading jailer. Again, Naruto proved his unpredictability as the Kyuubi blinked in confusion as its laughter flew away in the face of what it was witnessing. Naruto's body floated on the waves of the water. In this place, his eyes were open and unblinking as looked at the Kyuubi in its all glory instead of awe and fear. The Kyuubi saw one thing: acceptance. It wasn't acceptance of itself, nothing of the sort. No, this was acceptance that usually only comes at the end of a long life, where one is ready to pass on. It was a look far too old to be on the face of one so young, but that wasn't what caused the Kyuubi to pause. No, that was a small smile now playing on his lips as they dribbled blood, and he whispered something to him. Finally, I was beginning to think I had no way out of this hell. Finally, I can rest, Naruto said as his smile widened slightly. It seemed that the boy had been seeking death. That was what caused Kyuubi pause. It could not understand that feeling. It was always looking for ways to preserve itself. The thought of not wanting to live on, to feel the thrill of yet another victory, was foreign to the beast of malice. As a result, Naruto's claiming pools of blue panned over to Kyuubi's massive cage and locked eyes with the beast. There was no anger, no hatred, none of the emotions that the Kyuubi had become accustomed to seeing, only the same calm, accepting motion of his equally fading signature was there. It blinked in confusion as Naruto's eyes flashed with a look of compassion and understanding, something the beast had never once encountered. Stuck in a cage, unable to feel free, unable to do as you please, he said, sadness evident in his voice, just as the compassion he felt evident itself simultaneously. I won't let that happen to anyone else, he whispered to himself, as if answering to his own will. Naruto's body stood, his blood now pouring even more freely as he walked the steps to the meeting place of the two golden gates and looked up at the seal piece of paper holding them together. The Kyuubi was looking on in suspicion, but also silently. It would easily be able to escape now that the container was dying, but if he released the seal himself, it wouldn't have to use any force to simply will itself into the real world, ready and willing to do whatever he pleases. However, it also felt the silver of suspicion about what the blonde was doing. It knew nothing about the blonde because of how tight the seal is. It had only felt him pulling on its chakra once before, carrying a very quick glance of the real world before being locked away again. Now the brat was looking ready to release it. Naruto frowned. He had no way of reaching the seal paper to release the Kyuubi. Again, almost as if he willed it, the paper slid down the gates, coming to rest in easy distance of Naruto's hand. Naruto could feel his life slipping away from his wound and smiled as he looked up to the Kyuubi. Be free, Kyuubi. Do whatever it is you wish, but just be free, Naruto said as he reached open and grabbed the slip of the paper, pulling as hard as he could to rip it off. Kyuubi's eyes were in shock for two reasons. The first was the realization that his container had actually meant to tear off the seal of his own violation. It had done nothing to persuade him. The second was the appearance of the reason it was stuck within the cage. It felt the need of rip to tear to destroy the person whom had locked it away, but its eyes remained locked onto Naruto's own, whom was still smiling despite the fact that he hadn't managed to take the seal off. Naruto, you look so young, the Hokage said. The Yondai Hokage said, his bright blue eyes matching Naruto's perfectly. Naruto blinked in confusion as he looked at the Yondai, whom was holding his arm and keeping him from tearing off the seal. Naruto blinked again before saying through a bloody cough, Naruto? How do you know my name? He asked, blood dripping from his mouth. The Yondai frowned, looking at the blood, and a look of concern passed across his face. Well, I did give it to you, he said, as Naruto should have already known. You are my son, after all, he admitted, and Naruto completely shocked look. The Kyuubi blinked in surprise as well, but remained quiet, watching its container closely. His hand was still gripping the seal paper. Naruto's piece shattered as his face crit into one of anger as his other hand shot out, leaning the strongest punch he could with his weakened body, still causing the Dame to let out a oomph sound as he suddenly fell on knees from an unexpected attack from Naruto. Naruto, from shock from what the Yondam could see in anger, but the QB saw the weakness. Now, pervading its container's limbs, he was at his limits. How old are you, Naruto? I haven't seen anything from your life. Do you live like the hero you are supposed to be? The Yondam asked. Naruto smiled bitterly. Son, Naruto asked quietly. The Yondam looked up to see blue eyes of sadness before Naruto turned from him, looking at the Kyuubi yet again. I don't have a father, he admitted to the Yondam's surprise, but if you wish to see the life of your son, he lived. So be it. Naruto reached out again, placing a hand on Yondam's head and channeling his memories to the chakra construct of his supposed father. It took less than 2 seconds for all of the Naruto's short life to be downloaded into Yondam. What he didn't notice was the Kyuubi's eyes widening as his pupil turned into narrow slits from the memory it received. Naruto didn't say anything as he saw the Yondam's face stricken with grief and sorrow as he turned to the Kyuubi, pausing for a moment as he saw the Kyuubi even more feral eyes as he repeated what he had said before, be free. With that, he ripped the seal off before the Yondam could do anything and fell into the water as the fluttering of pieces of paper that one was the seal gently floated down to the water and rested on the now dead young man's body. Almost instantly, the wall of the place began to crack and shake as the great gates swung open, allowing the Kyuubi escape. The Yondam didn't even move from his spot as he looked at his dead son. The Kyuubi took a step forward, the water splashing loudly as chunks of ceilings fell into the water. The Yondam looked up at the Kyuubi but knew he couldn't do anything. The Kyuubi didn't smirk, didn't smile maliciously, didn't laugh in exhilaration. Instead, it merely turned his giant head down one corridor and closed its eyes, turning into a red mist as it traveled away from the seal and out of its former jailer, leaving a weeping man behind. Link break. Outside, Jiraiya bit his lip as he looked down into the gorge. He could no longer bear or hear or see Naruto. That worried him since the Gaki should have brought out the power of the Kyuubi, but he was determined his method would have worked. He waited a few more moments before rushing forward, about to jump down the gorge himself, when he felt the power surge and malicious of the Kyuubi yokai washing over the area. He smiled in triumph. That's more like it, Naruto, he thought as he looked down the gorge. He was unprepared for the burst of yokai suddenly turned into a literal whirlpool of energy, blasted up from the gorge, quickly rising in power to a proportion that Jiraiya quickly knew was unhealthy. His eyes widened as the whirlpool of energy widened, causing him to jump away and head to the village. He had to be ready to assist his sensei in subduing Naruto because he did not know if he could do it himself right now. Link break. Kyuubi manifested itself in the outside world for the first time in 13 years, and yet it could not appreciate this scene of freedom it now had. It knew it couldn't be sealed by the Shinigami again, and that had been the only way that it had been sealed thus far. Its container had done much when he willingly allowed him to leave the seal, and thus preventing the Shinigami from collecting its soul along with Naruto's. I knew that it was the strongest being in existence, and nothing could possibly stop it now. The pathetic Madara Uchiha stood no chance of even suggesting something to it with its full power backing at its disposal. Apparently, releasing the key also released the other half of its Kyuubi's chakra, but the Kyuubi didn't know what to do now. It yearned to destroy Konoha, and yet it couldn't bring itself to do as its massive head turned to the Hokage monument, looking at the village sprawled out underneath it, and within a quick hopping distance, it could be finishing the job it had started 13 years ago, and yet it was stopped by something it had never felt before. Its massive head swung again, this time looking at the sea far away, watching its glitter wave and wondering what it was to do now that it wasn't interested in destroying things for now. It didn't take long for it to swing its head to one of its massive tails, each the size of the Hokage tower, and lock onto the body of the one person whom had he earned its respect. Uzumaki Naruto's body lay among its soft fur. It gazed at the still body of its former container, and all of the hate and anger it had felt at the young man dissipated under the memories it had unwittingly gained. It could see Naruto's life, the beatings, the glare, the harsh words, the pain, the suffering, emotional and physical. It didn't stop. Naruto's first memory was of pain, and even onto his death, on the very claws that now supported the great beast whom held his lifeless body. That wasn't the extent of it, however. It also saw the nights of loneliness in which the boy cried himself to sleep, the birthdays which were always held by himself as he weakly and tearfully sung Happy Birthday before blowing out the same candle every year. Finally, the attempts that he had made to take his own life, always being brought back from the edge with its own yokai and increased healing. He may have given up on life, but he had been tired of the pain. He had no reason to live. There was nothing to look forward to. His crush hated the very thought of him. His teammate/brother thought he was a worthless loser. His sensei pawned him off on a hopeless pervert. Even Erosanin had thrown him into a gorg in an attempt to get rid of him. He knew that he had a few people who liked him, Tenoichi, Ayame, the Sign Dame, and Uruka, but what was four people in a span of an entire village, wishing for the ending of their very existence? The answer to Naruto? Very little. That was the reason he hadn't dodged the claw, that he would have had little trouble doing had he wanted to. That was why he didn't care about letting the QB free, because he didn't care anymore. He had it enough and had found the only real way to end it by letting QB win. Of course, QB looked from Naruto back to the village of Konoha, then back again before its eyes softened. A first of a lifetime, and it turned towards Konoha, shrinking down in size until it was the size of a carriage. All nine of its magnificent tails curled themselves around Naruto's body as it quickly launched itself towards Naruto's old home. Link break. It didn't take QB long as it reached Naruto's old village. The people were running around in a panic, and the shinobi whom sensed its presence did not attack, but the QB paid them no heed. He landed on the main path and walked purposely forward, his stride as dignified as a noble, and his presence as royal as any royal. Screams of panic and of fury were hurled at the QB as it progressed towards Konoha walls, and with a touch of its snort, lost the gates of their hinges, both of them being disintegrated to avoid causing damage to the village that his container had loved and hated. Of course, as soon as that happened, it felt multiple attacks being launched, but an invisible shield of its yokai sprung to life about 5 feet away from itself, stopping and extinguishing any and all attacks while simply repelling humans. It wanted to destroy them all, but the respect it held for the dead man in its tails stayed in its destructive power, as the man whom had hurled Naruto into the cork and an older man whom the QB remembered as a very close person to its charge stepped forward, power rolling off of both of them, though nothing compared to QB's own. "Halt! What are your purpose here, QB?" Sarutobi asked as he stared down a miniature version of the menacing fox that had nearly killed him 13 years ago. He was not the professor for nothing and realized that the QB had a reason for not simply wiping off Konoha from its maps. QB gazed panned around before locking on the Hokages. "You pathetic mortal over there," it said as a jerk of its muzzle at the Hokage. "You are the leader of this village, are you not?" It asked. The Hokage nodded. "I am," he replied. The QB looked around the streets and the rooftops filled with shinobis. It felt a sense of pride as he spoke again. "I have but two reasons for returning to your pathetic village now. That you have no weapons with which to harm me," it informed them, which caused tightened of hands and gritted of teeth as fear began to permeate in their air. The QB grinned forcefully. "To begin with, you will erect a tombstone to finest you people can create, and you are going to bury the person to whom you owe your lives and your village," it said, plainly causing the Sandam to raise an eyebrow. "And who may I ask this person?" The Sandam said, a hint of sadness in his voice. The QB ignored him, however. "Secondly, you are to investigate and purge the shinobi ranks of any and all whom are unfit for duty, and for the tasks that currently perform, such as yourself in the Kage position, or Hatake Kakashi for the position of a Jonin sensei. Do these two things, and I promise you that I will never attack this village again. So, as long as you honor the one whom will be entombed here, it said. The Hokage bristled. And you are saying that I'm not fit for this position, he said, threatening. The Kyuubi scoffed. Don't try to intimidate me, Hiruzen Sarutobi. I was old before you were even a thought in your grandfather's menial brain. Your threat will not work on me, and what I have said is nothing but truth. Now do you agree to my terms, or am I going to destroy Konoha, this village, because I am losing what little patience I have for your mortals? It said. The Sandam turned to Jiraiya, holding a small discussion before nodding and turning to Kyuubi. We accept, he said finally. But who are you entombing here? He asked, curiosity in his voice. Kyuubi smirked foxily as its voice then boomed out. Shinobi of Konoha, look upon your regrets. As his tale unfolds and Naruto's body is shown, gasps looked from sadness of two men were the only reaction. Kyuubi nuzzled Naruto's face. This man is the only reason your village is standing today, and you will honor him, or I will raise this village to the ground. His love for your worthless sacks of flesh will not be enough to keep me from doing so you any longer. You will honor me because his life was worth honoring, a true Jinchuriki in every sense of word. It praised. Silence engulfed the area as the shinobi looked at Naruto before one Johnny spoke. What did he do that saved us? He spoke, a slight tone of spite in his voice. The Kyuubi growled menacing. Strike that tone of yours, voice, before you lose your head, you ungrateful, mindless monkey. The Kyuubi said menacingly. Uzumaki Naruto is the only person whom I ever come to respect. My respect for him leads to my respecting his wishes, and those wishes include not destroying Konoha. So you are saved by him. Yet, if you let one thing disrespectful his memory or honor, and I will not hesitate to burn your village to the ground simply because he hated Konoha as much as he loved it. You have one last chance to redeem yourselves. Don't disappoint me, Kyuubi said before vanishing in a purple of flame. The group stood in silence as a little while longer before Sarutobi stepped forward and gathered Naruto's body in his arms. Sadness was evident on his face as he turned and walked towards the Hokage tower to make the arrangements. Link break. Kyuubi smirked as it laid on the bed. Its nails ran themselves along the body. Next to it, the blonde-haired man's chest heaved softly, displaying the breaths he was taking. The blonde himself groaned as he felt a hand run their fingers over his whiskers, making him awake from his peaceful sleep. And when he opened his eyes, he was met by a female version of Kyuubi. What is going on here? Well, Naruto-kun, it's me, Kyuubi no Kitsune, or as you know me as. But don't worry, or do not be afraid, because you are now my mate. I have brought you back from the pits of hell, and you will be living with me in my realm for all eternity. Naruto's eyes widened at this and he blushed when he realized that he will be now living with this hot chick in front of him. Then Naruto asked, but what about Konoha? You just slashed me. Don't you hate me? I'm going to be honest with you, Naruto. I hated you, but when you told me to be free, when I looked through your memories, you didn't despise me or curse me because of the hatred that was directed towards you because of me by the villagers. You just simply thought that I was misunderstood because you knew that I could talk, and it triggered some sort of feelings in me, and I couldn't just let you go. Your soul is here into a new body that I have given you, the same one that is there, buried in Konoha. Your heritage was revealed after your burial was made. Konoha regrets now, and your tomb is full of flowers every day by your friends, or so you call them. Kakashi Harake has been removed from joining duties, has been demoted to Genin, and Sasuke Uchiha betrayed Konoha after that, and he was hunted down by his sensei as well as the other Jonins and was killed off. But none other than Jiraiya. Jiraiya lost his Sanin rights, and he is now a normal Jonin. And there are two people who would like to meet you. Who? And in came Kushina and Minato. Son, I forget it. I don't want to talk about it. I will try to forgive you both because I know that you sacrificed yourself to save this village, but I still can't forgive you for putting the village in front before me. But I will try, I promise. As both Minato and Kushina cried and hugged their son. As the time went by, the Akatsuki started to make their move. But once they heard the news that Naruto had died and Kyuubi was freed, they tried to look for it, but couldn't trace it or track it down because Kyuubi was in its own realm, the realm of the foxes, the inner realm. So there were no way in hell they could track it down. And Naruto was training there because Kyuubi also wanted to free his other fellow demons and generals of its realm. After Naruto's training with Kyuubi and his parents were done, he returned to the human's realm, more powerful than ever. He then killed off all of the Akatsuki members, and after Akatsuki members have died, Kaguya alongside the Otsutsuki clan attacked, wiping out almost all of the Konoha, and Sakura was slashed into millions of pieces before she was fed to the dogs and wolves. As for Kakashi, his Sharingan was ripped out by none other than Obito, as Obito told him these words before his death. "You are a disappointment, Kakashi. You are worse than trash. You let Rin die. You let Sensei die. Then you let his sensei, our sensei's son suffer and then died by the hands of that fool. Jiraiya also died at the hands of Akatsuki, but in a more painful and gruesome manner. And as for the world, it was doomed. Until Naruto arrived and the battle with the Akatsuki began. Soon the Akatsuki dissipated, but soon after they were dead, none other than the Otsutsuki clan, after freeing somehow Kaguya from the moon, appeared. Naruto received both of the powers of Indra and Asura because Sasuke was dead, so there was no point giving his power to the Naruto's left eye was now Rin's Sharingan, as he had orbs behind him, making him a full Otsutsuki as well. And now he had his own staff and could float. He attacked, fought each and every one of the Otsutsuki members till it was down to only him, Ishiki, Momoshiki, Kaguya, and the Otsutsuki king, Urashiki. After his long-awaited battle with Kaguya, Momoshiki and Ishiki, he defeated them, but before he could kill them, they tried to give him karma seals, and they successfully did, but unknown to them, their plan backfired because they didn't have any backup vessels at that time, meaning Naruto only had their karma seal, making him their vessel, but Naruto, being a Otsutsuki himself, could not be given any karma seal for a vessel, so their souls were dissipated, leaving karma seals there to give Naruto more of the power. As the time went by, Naruto's other eye, the visible blue eye, turned white as its other sides turned black, gaining him the Jokan. And after his battle with the Otsutsuki king, he became the king of the realms, and so he was the guardian of earth and ruled it. As other villages started to protest, meaning the Tsuchikage, Raikage, started to protest this because they thought that he was too powerful for his own good and started to form an alliance to attack him, thus causing the Great Shinobi Fifth War. And Naruto mercilessly, ruthlessly defeated each and every one of them, butchering them. And after, there was only civilians left, and Naruto took away each and every one's of chakra, after consulting with Hagoromo, of course, and Hagoromo agreed because humans have used their chakra that he wanted them to use to reconnect as a means to destroy others. And as for Naruto, he happily married with Kurama with blessings of both Hagoromo and his parents, and had two sons, Inari and Boruto. Both had orange hair with blue endings out their hair, and blue eyes with red hint in them and slit-like marks in them, with 3 whisker marks each. As the family lived happily ever after, and Naruto was pretty damn sure that they were free from both future and present terrors of Akatsuki and Otsutsukis. As this is where I'm going to be leaving this part of, guys. I hope you like this one. Oh, sorry. As this is where I'm going to be leaving off this story of, guys. I hope you like this one. And if you do, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And this is Apollo Uchiha, and I'm signing out. Peace.